switching station there. This is actually made out of marble. All those fixtures are located in solid marble rock. This is the current fish counting station. It's been there for many years. And there's this retaining wall here. This is an interesting retaining wall. This is the original retaining wall from 1904. It was constructed when they built that old timber trib dam. They built this retaining wall, which is just stacked rocks with some mortar in between. No reinforcement on it, no steel in it of any kind. And that wall has shown significant deterioration. There's a lot of concerns. And the most recent engineering study showing that wall is suggesting that significant repairs need to be made to that wall in order to keep it structurally intact. One of the big issues that is a real point of controversy and a hot spot is the fish ladders and fish passage. And a lot of people have opinions on fish passage and the fish ladders and everything else. All I can say is we are on notice from the Department of Fish and Wildlife that this is an impediment to fish passage. And we're on notice that we're going to have to address that at some point. And at some point in the future, the county, if we keep the dam, has to fix those fish ladders. Whether you subscribe to that or not, I'm not going to argue it. I'm not a fish biologist. All I know is what they tell me. And so that is a big issue for the county, is looking at what we're going to do with those fish ladders if we keep this facility, and how we're going to address replacing those and repairing those and fixing those up. And again, just another point, the fish ladder come up on top of the dam. As I mentioned, the old timber trip dam is still in place. This is actually an aerial photo that you can see a little portion of it right there. You can see a little bit of remnant of it right there. And from the soundings that we've taken, it's still in place. We'll get it right through there. And the original arc, and it's still there. If the county proceeds removing the concrete dam, the timber dam has to be removed as well. I mentioned the liability and the challenges the county is having in securing the area, the vandalism and everything else. And there's some other issues that we really struggle with too. Drift is one of the biggest ones. This was a couple years ago where we had a large amount of drift built up on the dam. This happens every year. We have high flows, which is not this year. I mean, there's been almost no high flows this year. But every year that we get real high flows, we struggle with drift. This was 3 or 4 years ago. On this particular case, we brought Erickson air crane in. They lifted the logs off with a helicopter. Pretty expensive, pretty risky operation. The fish ladder is completely blocked and impassable under this that condition there. And it gets worse. In '97 was the worst log jam we had in recent history, where a good portion of the dam was choked with logs. And we had to hire Huffman Wright logging company out of Canyonville to come up with a highline system and basically log the debris off the dam to make it safer. Those guys are just walking on stacked up debris. It's an interesting job. The gentleman over here was asking if we had any pictures of the December '64 flood. We have several, and these are a couple of the better ones. You can see a pretty good rapid there and a decent drop. Oops. And a view from across the river showing the flow. We do not believe this is high flow. We think this is either several hours before or several hours after the high flow. The high flow is considerably higher than this. There's some other photos from '74 that look very similar to this, and we think that this was not high flow. One of the concerns we have, though, as I mentioned, that big retaining wall that holds in the entire powerhouse area where the water flows, with that stacked rock and mortar. If that wall was to fail during a flood, the county had a huge liability in trying to get that repaired. So I've mentioned dam removal several times. That's been a hot topic in the papers, and it's an issue that everybody has an opinion on, and there's a fair amount of debate on it, and people have strong opinions regarding dam removal. But the Jackson County Board of Commissioners is considering dam removal. Now, why are they doing that? What it really boils down to is a matter for the county of cost and liability. There's a lot of dam removal being done throughout Southern Oregon, and those are very controversial. This is a Board of Commissioners that was very, very opposed to the removal of Elk Creek Dam. It took a lot of measures to try to prevent the removal of Elk Creek dams. This is a board that went officially on record of opposing the removal of the Savage Rapids Dam, and they've been officially opposed to the removal of the Klamath River dams. But right now, they're considering removing this dam. And Why is that? It's very simple. It's a cost and liability issue. Fish are driving many of the other dam removals. For our Board of Commissioners to consider this, fish is not driving this issue for the board. But the issue the county's facing is the cost and liability of keeping that thing. And how are we going to address that cost and liability in the future? And if we have an option to remove it and remove that liability, let's take a look at it. The dam does need rehabilitation. We commissioned a study as part of the project to look at potential dam removal, and they have finished that. The cost of rehabilitating that dam to be in a condition that's safe for another 20, 30, 40 years is $16 million. And what that would do is, I mentioned how the dam is hollow. You have a slab of the buttresses. Basically what they would go is they would go fill in those spaces underneath the dam and make it a solid dam, and then repair those retaining walls that we talked about. And then they would also replace the fish ladder. So basically get the thing in a state that we are surviving challenges for fish passage, and to make the dam safe for earthquakes, and just the deterioration of the dams has been seen over the last 60 plus years. It cost the county around $16 million to get into that state. Currently, the dam provides no power generation, no flood control, and no irrigation benefit. And there, like I said, there is some recreation value there compared to what the county was hoping it would be. It's pretty limited. As I mentioned, the powerhouse is deteriorating, and vandalism is a real problem. We're on notice from the Fish and Wildlife Service that we're going to have to deal with the fish ladder at some point. I talked about the drift. It's a huge liability from people falling over the dam, off the dam, everything else. And where the county's at is the bottom line is, since the county received this facility, we have not invested in it. The county cannot continue to do that. The county's in a position where either we're going to invest in the dam and keep it, or we're going to invest in the dam and take it out. But ignoring it, as we have been doing, is simply not an option. We cannot continue to ignore it. We have to spend money on it one way or another. So what's the current status on it? In July of last year, the county received a $5 million grant from NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which oversees rivers. And they gave us $5 million to remove the dam. And so what we did is we said, well, we'll take the $5 million, but we're going to study rehabilitation as part of that $5 million, and they agreed with it. One of the conditions of the money that we got, the $5 million, is we had to spend it all by October 31st, 2010. And the reason for that, the funding source was basically stimulus funds. So the stimulus fund program that was put together by our current administration, which was supposed to create jobs, they wanted that money spent fast. So we got the money in July 2009, and everything had to be done by October 31st of 2010. If you've ever been associated with large construction projects like that have an environmental process, that is an amazingly fast time frame. Very fast time frame. So what we did is we put out a request for proposals almost immediately. The process that we procured it was through what's called a design-build contract. Typically, when a contractor, when an owner wants a piece of public infrastructure built, you hire an engineer. The engineer designs it, so you know what you got. Then you put that design out for bid, and then contractors bid on that design. Under a design-build contract, what we basically did is we combined that all into one step. Basically, we said we want the dam removed, and you do the design, you get the permits, you do the environmental work, you do everything, and then you remove it if that is the decision of the board to actually move ahead with removing it. So it's a kind of a non-traditional delivery process for contracting. One of the biggest things it does is it shifts the risk of that $5 million from us to the contractors, which is what I really wanted to do. Because of the short time frame and the process that we chose to do it, I wasn't sure I was going to get any bids. But I guess I was either blessed or cursed with a bad economy, and we got 5 bids. And 3 of those contractors are very well-known contractors in Oregon and have all kinds of work working in rivers. The bids range from $4.7 million to $5.9 million.